In this video, I'm going to be philosophizing on the distinction within allowances and or disallowances. Allowances concern what conductively contribute to mobile volition calibrated to certain mobile conducts within the allowance of a distinct positive and or negative direction. Not necessarily meaning the allowance is always positive and or meaningful in terms of its consequences, compared to what may be a negative allowance that one may engage to the detriment of one's being, and should have constituted the allowance as a disallowance. And a disallowance is meaningful for preventing and or avoiding certain threats and or injury and or danger and or counterproductive misconducts. A disallowance, for example, may be to avoid a certain route as you see a bear walking across a street to avoid a certain injury and or threat. This is a disallowance. That the disallowance may allowance you to experience more positive subjective well-being, future-oriented and or currently. It may often provide satisfaction and or relief, and or in some cases other positive meaningful emotions. And you often see within snow days that children may desire to engage in certain other meaningful goals, and in some cases some individuals are more productive working at home. And a snow day they may have otherwise at school, be it that it's near Christmas, may have wasted more time and or effort engaging certain schoolwork. So the disallowance in some cases that school's canceled for a day may provide benefits to certain individuals and nor or not others who may need extra help to satisfy certain essential and or necessitated needs within learning, as some individuals may be struggling whom desire to learn and yet may have more difficulties. Yet often individuals whom desire to learn will engage more creative problem solving to learn, be it that it's a subject matter that they're interested in learning compared to certain topics and or subject matters that they may not be interested in learning, with the caveat that it's just above an individual's ability to comprehend, instead of something that an individual truly may not be able to comprehend until one has cultivated the prerequisites for certain existing priors to make sense of the complex analytic terminology, with each analytic term as the stepping stones to comprehend more complex theorizing within the class, for example, that one may be taking a course in a certain subject matter and or topic within the subject matter that may pertain to distinctions in criminal law concerning property crime and or violent crime, where one unit may have been on property crime and then subsequently one is more intrinsically motivated to learn more about violent crime compared to property crime. Yet one may not hold certain existing prior knowledge, be it that one comes from a collectivist nation state, concerned with often being guilty before one is proven innocent, compared to due process in individualist countries, that due process prevents this ideology to mean that individuals are truly only guilty until they have been proven to be guilty from uniquely the evidence within the case, and are therefore innocent until proven guilty. And that's what a good portion of due process means. Yet due process is a fairness process. So there are more within the due process that is not necessarily constrained to innocent till proven guilty. Be it you may engage in due process within other self-commitments and or goals in your existentia in terms of how you may equitably treat others, to provide the due diligence to proportionate judgment of one's misconducts and or perceived misconducts that one may deliberate to be conducts instead of misconducts, to not hold dogmas proportionately, to not judge unfairly the other and or to judge equitably the other within the uniqueness of their being, to see more clearly their subjectividad. Within inferences, one may infer from what is most meaningful within directly and or indirectly related evidential truth claims from uniquely the relevant and or meaningful and or appropriate evidence. And meaningful is the most meaningful. And I mean that most meaningfully, as it's the meaningfulness within our perception and our communications that elaborate in detail and or connect creatively what's most necessary to the communication in terms of its urgency and its allowance for optimizing certain optimizations and or disallowancing what is most concerning. And often you see individuals who are communicating most meaningfully on either certain communications that hold allowances and or disallowances, that this is something that we should conduct approaching it, and or this is something that we should avoid entirely and or even prohibit, to allowance for more positivity and more optimisms subsequent. And that's the meaningfulness that provides a fueling intrinsic motivation to cultivate often deeper individual autonomy and or competence within individuals whom are consuming information. And be it that the information is meaningful compared to meaningless and or lacking meaningfulness and yet may hold some meaning, the meaningfulness is always vastly ranging in its complex combinations of information with a high information density in terms of the information communicated, that nearly intrinsically always optimize intracategorical and or intercategorical effectivenesses and or efficiencies, compared to worsening the intracategorical and or intercategorical ineffectivenesses and or inefficiencies. As meaningfulness is intrinsically complex and or meaningful to conduct X, and not just meaningful to conduct X, provides the cues future-oriented to the allowances and or disallowances, informing the optimal navigational directionality within the consumptions metabolizing the meaningfulness processes within one's nervous system, engaging the direct perception metabolisms within the ingestion one may perceive within retinal gaze, to look upon what cues the positive and or negative information within consumption of information processes, that allowance for and or disallowance for navigational responses, meaning be it there's a incredibly bright light engaging a disallowance, a sensory disallowance that warns an individual to avoid a certain hazard. An allowance within a distinct direction allows one to navigate to safety. Subsequent to engaging the meaningful similarities, one perceives the disallowance prior existing to the exposure within retinal gaze to the intense light one may not handle appropriately, and or be it one holds the masterfulness to think what tools and or technologies one may employ to navigate allowances compared to engage the disallowances that allow one to more meaningfully navigate obstacles within certain elaborations of existing prior information and or communications that provide easier access to knowledge and or cultivate self-knowledge and or self-awareness from the explorations one engages. That's all I want to say for this video. Hope you have an awesome one. Keep moving this outside.